Hello everyone and welcome back to the Library of the Weird. I hope you're doing fine wherever you are. I certainly am. It's still January and I want to take this as an opportunity to talk to you about all the new horror releases I read in 2023. If you've watched my recap video that came out last year, you probably know that I've read 51 books last year, and out of these 51 books, 33 were horror related. And what you don't know is that out of these 33 horror books, 18 were new releases from last year. And in this video, I want to rank all 18 horror books I read last year. So before we kick things off, I just wanted to mention a few things. The first one being I've rated none of these books lower than 3 stars. That means that even the book which is at place number 18 is an okay book, or I thought that it was an okay book. It's not a bad novel at all. The second thing is that, of course, all of these opinions are my own. I think, especially with the first book, I'm going to stir up some controversy, but I think that's bound to happen. I don't like every book everyone else likes, and I like books very few people like. So don't be surprised at those books. And the third thing I want to mention is that I haven't looked up my Storygraph or Goodreads ratings for these books, so I'm going to rank these by how well I remember them. So maybe there's a 5-star book that is at like number 10. I don't think so, but I gave a lot of 4 and 3.5 or 4.5 stars. Those could be somewhat mashed up. I don't know. So please excuse me for that. But that's all I basically wanted to say beforehand. And without further ado, let's start with book number 18. So, and right off the bat, we're starting with some controversy. At book number 18, there's Rouge by Mona Awad. This is a very, very popular novel. People loved it. It was all over social media. Mona Awad is a very popular author. She's also written Bunny, which many people loved. And from the themes and the setup, I thought I would really like this book. The telling is kind of fairy tale, dreamlike. And it covers themes like beauty standards, family and childhood trauma, and grief, all things I usually like to read about. But I didn't really like this one. We are following this woman who goes back to her hometown because her mother has died under some questionable circumstances, and she is confronted with her past, with her mother's past, and she kind of meets this beauty cult, and things get really, really weird real quick. And while it's written in this dreamlike style, which I normally like, I didn't really like it in this one. I don't know why. I can't really explain why I just didn't really like this book. So please excuse me for that. But I think this is the most controversial placing on this list, so please bear with me. At number 18, we have Whalefall by Daniel Krauss. This book is about a young man who also has lost his father. It's another book about grief, but also kind of a coming-of-age book. This boy always went diving with his father, And now now that his father is dead, he's going to show him, and she's going diving again. And yeah, he's swallowed up by a whale. This happens like on the first few pages of the book, so I hope it's not a spoiler. And this book has basically different timelines. The first one being him trying to get out of the whale, and the other timelines are about him and his father, their relationship, but also the relationship to other family members. I liked it. It's quite fast-paced. There's a lot of action happening, but I didn't like it as much as other books on this list, so that's why it's number 17. At number 16, there's The Wicked Unseen by Gigi Griffis. I like this quite a lot, actually. This is about a girl moving with a family to this strange small town where people are really, really religious. It takes place in the 90s, and she's like an outsider right off the bat because her family is not religious. She's wearing like black clothes, wearing makeup, and I think she's dyeing her hair in like blue or green colors, something like that. Yeah, people don't like her, but she kind of makes some friends who want to take her to this Halloween party. And after this party, a boy goes missing. And of course, her family are the first suspects. And this is basically what the book is about. It's also kind of a coming-of-age story, and it's about religious fanaticism and stuff like that. It's so low on the list because it's I found kind of shallow because it's written in this YA kind of style, and I usually don't really like that. I like this book, but yeah, still at number 16 of all the new releases I read last year. At number 15, we have coming in Burn the Negative by Josh Winning. I also like this very much. This is about a woman who's working as a journalist. She's traveling from London to the US because she has to do interviews about a new TV show. And what she's finding out on the plane, I think, but maybe only if when she's in the US, that this TV series is a remake of a horror movie in which she starred in as a child. She's very traumatized by that because like in The Exorcist, or like the circumstances around The Exorcist, people who took part in this movie died. A lot of people died. And yeah, because of that, she's super traumatized. And she still starts to conduct these interviews, and then weird things start happening. This is also quite fast-paced. It's quite funny at times. I didn't quite like the ending. That's why this book is ranked so low. But yeah, all in all, it's a nice book. At number 14, there's Natural Beauty by Ling Huang. This is a book about a woman who's working in a fast food chain. We learn that as a child, she was really into piano. She even went to school for piano, but her parents are immigrants from China, I believe. So she's, of course, also Chinese. Their parents worked their asses off for her to kind of have nice things. And when they find out that she's really, really good at piano, she gets to go to music school. She somehow quit that, and we learn why while reading this book. But one evening when she's working at this fast food restaurant, a woman comes in and offers her a job at this weird beauty place. And yeah, of course, she accepts and starts working there. And of course, really strange things start happening. And yeah, this is also a book that kind of confronts beauty standards, but also what's it like living as a first generation or second generation immigrant in the US when you look different than everyone else, and all this stuff. There's also grief as a theme. I did like it. It was not one of the best books I read this year, but I think this is a great novel. Coming in at number 13, there's Howls from the Wreckage, which is an anthology, a short story anthology with stories all having something to do with disaster. I think they say something like Cloverfield and things like that. And I think that's a fitting description. There's probably about 20 stories in here. It was released by the Howls Society. They also released Howls from Hell and Howls from the Middle Ages. I didn't quite enjoy the story collection that much, but that's mostly because I'm not really into disaster stuff. But there are some great stories in here. So if you can, pick it up and read it. I quite liked it. I just didn't like it as much as there are other story collections. At number 12, there's The Destroyer of Worlds, A Return to Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff. This is the second book in the Lovecraft Country series. We're following a family in, I think, 1950s US, and in this book, there's lots of confrontations with racism, and also Matt Ruff kind of criticizes Lovecraft for his racism. But it's also quite funny, and I enjoyed it. I liked the first book a tiny bit more, but I think there are more books to come. So if you haven't picked it up already, read the first one, then read this one, and maybe then there's a third one. I don't know. So if you've watched my top 5 current horror authors video, this next placing probably kind of comes as a surprise. This is Lone Women by Victor LaValle. Victor LaValle is one of my favorite authors. I love The Ballad of Black Tom. I also like this book. It's about a black woman who leaves her family to start a new life as a farmer. She bought a plot of land and wants to grow things there. She has this huge cast with her that probably plays a role in the book. I don't want to spoiler that. It's pretty clear from the beginning. And it takes place like at the turn of the 20th century, I think. So either in the 1890s or 1910s or something like that. And I learned a lot reading this book. It confronts racism in the US, not only at that time, but also nowadays. I enjoyed this. I just didn't enjoy this as much as other books on the list. And with that said, let's start with the top 10. And at number 10, we have Mooncalves, Strange Stories, a story collection edited by John WM Thompson. So probably no one of you knows about this. This was released by a very small press. It's a short story collection, and all these stories in here are very, very weird. I learned about this from the Outer Dark podcast. They had an interview with John W.M. Thompson, and when I listened to that, I was like, okay, I have to read this book. I liked almost all the stories in here. They're not all really horror stories, but most of them are. But they're all very strange and weird stories. Maybe read up on that or listen to the interview on the Outer Dark. I really enjoyed this one, and I think it's a great book to start with our top 10. At number 9, we have Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. This is the last book I read in 2023. It's about a young family, a husband, a wife, and their baby child who won an apartment lottery and moved to this crazy apartment in this really, really prestigious building in the center of New York. And the building is kind of strange. It's an older building. It has like weird gargoyles on the walls, and yeah, really weird things start happening. It has a lot of Jewish folklore in there. The family is Jewish, and they're not very religious, but still things happening in there have a lot of Jewish lore. And then there's a creature coming up, which is pretty famous in all over horror literature. I really enjoyed this. Just because of that, I want to make a video on this book, because you could have picked up on that like really, really early, but I didn't, because they kind of put a new stroke on this kind of creature. I really enjoyed this one. This was number 9, Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. At number 8, we have Out There Screaming, a short story collection of new black horror edited by Jordan Peele and also by John Joseph Adams. He's just not on the cover because Jordan Peele sells more books. This is an anthology with short stories only by black authors. There are some really big names in here like N.K. Jemisin and Nnedi Okorafor, but there's also a lot of authors I've never heard about. And yeah, they focus on the black perspective, what it's like for black people to live where they live, again, confronting racism and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed this, so pick it up if you can. At number 8, we have Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. Jessica Johns is a native author. She's Cree. And in this book, we are also following a Cree woman who's, I think, living in Vancouver. And she has these very, very weird dreams about her sister who died a few years ago. And the strange thing is that sometimes she brings things back from her dream. And her solution is that she goes back to her very big family and, yeah, confront what's up with her dreams. And this book is a lot about like native family ties or what family relations are, but also trying to flee from that heritage. And yeah, there's also a lot of grief involved and yeah, stuff like that. I really enjoyed this book. Pick it up if you can. The next one is one of course, last year's biggest books. It's Holly by Stephen King. I enjoyed this book so much that I had to make a review video like, I think 4 hours after I read this, after I finished this book. It's about this old professor couple that kidnaps people and eats them. Also not a spoiler, it's like on the very first pages of the book. And an older character we know from other Stephen King books picks up a case as a private detective. There's this girl missing. The girl is called Holly, and she has to basically find the girl. And I like this book a lot. This is more a thriller than a horror book. Kind of really disgusting at times. So read it with care. But yeah, I enjoyed this one very much. I'm also excited for the new Stephen King novel that will be coming out this year. I just don't know what it's called just yet. And with that done, we're entering the top 5, and we're starting off with A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. I like this quite a lot, mostly because our main character is a biologist. She specializes on bugs, and especially dead bugs. So she's like there when archaeologists excavate something. And at the start of the book, one of these excavations is cancelled. She moves back to her mom, who lives in the house of her grandma. And when she enters the house, she notices some strange things. Her mother was always a very, very upbeat person that liked bright colors, and suddenly she notices, oh, the walls are now painted in a strange beige. They had definitely a different color when it was last here. And then there's this painting on the wall showing Confederate soldiers, and she asks her mom, what's up with that? And she replies something like, yeah, your grandma always liked this stuff, so I wanted to pick it back up. And then really strange things start happening. It's a book that made me laugh at times, but it's also very, very exciting. You really want to find out what happens next. It's a great book. T. Kingfisher also has a new book coming out this year, I think. So look out for that, and please read this one. It's very, very good. At number 4, we have The Beast You Are by Paul Tremblay. This is a short story collection. All these collections have something to do with beasts, some in a more abstract way. For example, there's a story with a ghost, but then there's also weird stories with a company trying to hire someone who finds out that the company doesn't exist, and then strange things start happening. But the heart of this book is the very last story, which is called The Beast You Are. And it's an epic tale written in free verse featuring humanoid animals, think Watership Down. It's 200 pages long, and it's really, really good. Once you get into the flow of reading it, it's such a great story. It's about this community of animals where once every cycle a beast comes out of the woods and eats one of 3 sacrifices. Yeah, this is a very, very strange story, but I liked it quite a lot. This is a great collection. Paul Tremblay also has a new book coming out this year. It's called Horror Movie, and I think it's going to be released in either May or June, so look out for that. And until then, please pick up this book. It's really, really good. Now we're entering the top 3, and we're starting off with Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. Stephen Graham Jones is one of my favorite authors of all time. I loved The Only Good Indians, and this is the second book in his Lake Witch trilogy. We meet Jade Daniels again, who's the protagonist, the final girl of the first book, which was called My Heart is a Chainsaw. And I don't want to spoil too much because I feel like I would spoil some things from the first book. Please pick it up and read it. The third book in the trilogy, which is called The Angel of Indian Lake, I think, will be released on March 26th. So by then you should have read both My Heart is a Chainsaw and Don't Fear the Reaper. Please pick this one up. And at number 2, we have Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This is a book that takes place in 90s Mexico. We're following 2 main characters. The first, a female main character, works as an editor. She loves horror movies. She also loves heavy metal. I really would like to meet her. And our other protagonist is an actor who kind of fell from grace. Nowadays he's just working in voice acting, but he wants to go back to the big screen. And he moves in next to this strange old man who turns out to be a director of several horror movies, but also of a movie that was never released, that was lost. And of course, our female main character really wants to meet him and ask him about this film. And he tells a few stories that involve kind of a German Nazi sorcerer And they try to finish the movie because 3 scenes were missing from the movie. And yeah, then really, really strange things start happening. Silvia Moreno-Garcia is also one of my favorite authors. I loved Mexican Gothic. I love her short stories. Please pick up this book. It's really, really good. And now at number 1 is a book I've talked a lot about. I also made a video on this. I feel like it's one of the greatest short story collections that was released in years. This is Never Whistle at Night, edited by Shane Hawke and Theodore C. Van Alst Jr. This is a book that contains short stories that were all written by native authors. There's an incredible range of the stories. There are slasher stories in here, there's cosmic horror in here, but there's also very, very heavy stories that have a lot to do with racism or grief and stuff like that. And then there are really, really light stories that make you laugh. But I think I liked each and every story in this book. The only bad thing I maybe have to say that the pacing sometimes is kind of weird, or the placing of the stories. But yeah, this is definitely the best book I read this year, period. Not only the best new release, but I feel like the best book I read last year. So please, please, please pick this one up. It's really, really good. And yeah, with that, we finished all 18 books, all 18 new releases I read last year. I will kind of try to keep up with that, like try to read around 20 books that will be coming out in 2024. I may be going to do a video on the new releases in 2024, but because there are quite a few you should look out for. But with that, I am finished. Have you read some of these books? Have I missed some? Are there other 2023 books that I should have read? Please comment down below and let me know. I really would love to know. And with that, have a nice day and goodbye.